Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Please give me a confirmation when the audio and video are clear to you so that I can begin with this part 3 of 2016 question paper for today. I'll be waiting for your confirmation. Once I receive a confirmation on the chat, I will start with the session. Okay, I have received the confirmation on the chat. So let us begin with the session for today. This particular session, it will be approximately 1 hour long session like the past sessions too. And in today's session, we will be doing the part 3 of 2016 UPSC CPWD question paper. So as you all are already aware, CPWD question paper by UPSC, this particular question paper will be a 2 hour examination with 120 questions in all. So we are solving the past 2016 question paper with a motive to understand the question types and how to answer, or what should be the preparation process, what are the areas you need to focus on. So you will get a clarity on these points when you go through these sessions. So in today's session, which is part 3, again we are going to solve 30 questions starting from question number 61. For the past questions, if you have not yet watched the past sessions from question number 1 to 60, make sure you follow us on this YouTube channel where we have the earlier held live sessions where we have solved the remaining questions too. So let me begin from question number 61 for today's session. So question number 61, the firm in which the architect is the principal and will be solely responsible for all the decisions involved in running the office is dash. So they're talking about a firm where there's only one principal architect, and everything is managed by that single person or single architect. Which type of setup or firm is it, they're asking. Look into the options. Very large office, obviously no. Very large offices is firstly it is a very vague term. Very large office, it's a subjective term. However, very large office, even if you think in logical terms, it would be something which involves a lot of architects, lot of head architects. So that's what very large generally could mean. However, it is not a technical thing, a very subjective and a vague term it is. So that would not be the answer. Partnership firm, from the name itself you understand what is partnership, where you partner, or where an architect partners with another architect. So partnership firm will have multiple partners, not a single. So they're talking about a principal architect in which there's only one single person. Single proprietorship firm, that would be the appropriate answer here, because it's a question where they're talking about one single architect. So it's a question from professional practice. C would be the answer for this question. Single proprietorship is a firm where you will have a single architect heading all the teams or all the works of functions of the firm or the organization. Limited company, on the other hand, it is again a private limited or a public limited. It's generally a larger company where you will have a private limited setup. So that is not where you will have a single person or single principal architect as such. So there will be multiple directors in a private limited company, and the minimum number of directors is 2 for a private limited company to be registered in India. So that would not be the answer for this particular question too. C is the appropriate answer, where you'll have a single principal architect. It's a very simple question. Whenever you're confused or if you're not clear from the options, try doing the elimination approach. It will give you for sure clarity in such theoretical questions based on simple understanding. Next, question number 62. As per the National Building Code of India, the floor area ratio is dash. So even if you have not studied National Building Code, you probably would already know what is floor area ratio, FAR. Floor area ratio is basically the ratio between the total built up area and the plot area. It is the ratio between total permissible built up area divided by the plot area. So let us look into the given options and see which one will suit this particular formula, which one will describe this particular formula. So let us look into the options one by one. Total area covered on the ground floor to the area of the plot. They're talking only about the ground floor. That's not what built up is. Built up is basically the total area on all the floors of the building. What is built up area? Total floor area including all floor levels. That's what built up is. So they're talking about ground floor in the first option, so you can right away eliminate that. Second option, total area covered on all floors to the area of the plot. That's what they're talking about, total built up area divided by plot. So B would be the answer. Let us look into the remaining two options too. If they have included something confusing in the options, let's try to have a look. Third option is area of a plot to the total area covered. They are talking about the reciprocal of FAR. That's not correct. Area of the plot to the area covered on all the floors. That also is not correct. So these, they're talking about ground floor here. In the last option, they're talking about the reciprocal of what FAR is. So D is the correct answer. Total area covered on all floors, which is nothing but the total built up divided by the area of the plot. So B would be the appropriate answer for question number 62. It's a very simple one based on the simple understanding on what is FAR. So if you know the meaning of floor area ratio, you can answer the question very easily. Next one, question number 63. This again is based on some terminology. Let's look into the question carefully. An offer made by the contractor to the owner. So they're talking about an offer which is made by whom? By the contractor to the owner with a view to obtain his acceptance for construction of a facility. So there is a contractor, say I am an owner, a contractor has come to me and he is giving me an offer, he's giving me a proposal and he wants to accept, he wants to get acceptance from me. He's basically seeking permission so that I can come into contract with him and give him my project. So that's what they're talking about. They're talking about a proposal. What is an offer? It is basically a proposal. A contractor is giving a proposal to the owner. So which would be the correct answer? Contract would not be the correct answer because contract is a legally binding agreement which comes after the acceptance. So I have, for example, if there is this person A which is contractor, person B who is the owner. What would be the process of contract? Firstly, they're talking about a case where either owner goes to the contractor or the contractor comes to the owner, either way. So in this case, they're talking about contractor coming to the owner with an offer. Offer is basically a proposal for construction for the basically seeking the permission. So that's an offer being made by the contractor. Once the offer is accepted by the owner, then they will come into a legally binding agreement which is called as contract. So contract is a term which comes after the acceptance of the offer. So that's not the correct answer. Easement obviously is not. Easement is a term which relates to rights of a particular owner. You have easement of right of way. For example, actually there is one more question moving further which talks about exclusively about easement. But if I just give you a brief idea, say there are two plots, plot A and plot B, and there is main road over here along plot B. Now there will be a right of way. Plot A person, even though he doesn't own plot B, he has the right of way to his plot, right? So that's basically easement. Easement is basically right of an owner based on the location with respect to other surrounding properties. It could be easement of light, easement of right of way, easement of you also have the easement of support, which basically relates to the foundation and the strength of the ground. So I will talk about easement moving further. It doesn't fit into this context of proposing an offer for the construction. Acquisition also is not a correct option. Acquisition is basically where a firm acquires something else, or a company acquires something else which is smaller. So two companies, one company is acquiring another, that's acquisition, right? So that's not the option here. Tender would be the appropriate option. So what is tender? Basically, tender is a proposal. Tender is a offer being made by the contractors to the owner. So the process generally in contracts would be, it starts with the notice inviting tender. So generally the owner, in case of government projects, it is generally done. So the government agency will publish a newspaper advertisement which is called as notice inviting tender. In India it is generally called as NIT. Once the notice inviting tender, so government projects generally publish notice inviting tender on the name of the in the name of the president of the country, right? So based on the notice inviting tender, contractors will submit the offers. That's called as tender. Once a tender is finalized or once a proposal is accepted, then the contractor and the owner will enter into a legally binding agreement called as contract. So that's the process or sequence in which contract is finalized for a construction project. So tender is the appropriate answer over here. So you need to read the question. So terms are simple, but you need to read the questions carefully so as to eliminate the incorrect ones. Now people can also select contract if they do not understand the difference. So if I just summarize this one, what is the basic difference between tender and contract? Contract is a legally binding agreement. So for a contract, there should be an offer which is accepted. But tender on the other hand, it is just an offer. It can be accepted, cannot be accepted. Once it is accepted, the agreement which they enter into, that's contract. So that's a basic difference between contract and tender. Remember that difference. Answer would be B for this particular question. Next one, question number 64. So whatever pictures you're having, these are not a part of the question paper. Only the question and the options are a part of question paper. I've added some images so that it is easy for you to relate with the answers and understand them. So do not think that you will get these questions in the question paper, right? So let us look into question number 64. An upright pipe with one or more nozzles or spouts for drawing water from the main, especially for firefighting, is dash. So talking about a vertical pipe in which there will be openings or walls or nozzles from where water can be supplied. So you can see this particular picture over here. You have an upright pipe from which you have a nozzle coming out or a spout coming out from where water can be supplied, right? So even so this particular let's look into the options. If you see, for what is a fire hose, it is basically a pipe. Fire hose is basically a pressure resistant pipe which is capable of handling high pressure water supply in firefighting systems. So fire hose is basically a reel, a hose reel, which is generally installed in firefighting systems. That's not the answer. Sprinkler head obviously is not the answer. Sprinkler head is basically it is a component in fire suppressant systems which are installed within the ceiling generally, where in case of smoke or fire, the sprinkler will get activated and the water will be released. It's called as a fire suppressant system, which is used for fire suppression in spaces. So that's not an answer. Standpipe, that could be an answer. Hydrant, that also could be an answer. So both are actually correct answers here, C or D. So this basically was, so in the examination of UPSC, you will have questions only with one correct option. But sometimes due to error, there can be questions where multiple answers are correct. So it doesn't mean you will select multiple answers. You will not have an option to select multiple options. You can select only one option, any one option. So in this question, even if you select C, you will get your marks. Even if you select D, you will get your marks. This is basically an error in the question paper. So any of the correct answers can be selected. Standpipe is, what is a standpipe? What you see in the first picture over here, generally you have different types of firefighting systems, like you have downcomer system, upriser system. You can read about these definitions in the National Building Code Part 4 in the Volume 1. National Building Code 2016 Volume 1. Part 4 is an exclusive part for fire safety. If you go through the definitions given in the terminology of that chapter, you will know that there are three types of firefighting systems, that is downcomer system, upriser system, and dry riser system. Dry riser, wet riser system, and downcomer system, right? So these are the three types of systems. In all these three systems, you will have a standpipe. Standpipe is basically a vertical pipe which transports the water from the overhead tank or the underground tank onto each and every floor level, with the outlets provided, or landing walls. These are called as landing walls, which provide water at each level. So that was also a correct answer for this question. Even hydrant also would be a correct answer. What is a hydrant? You can see in this picture. Generally, hydrants are laid along the perimeter of buildings, or generally along the walkways on the streets. So what are fire hydrants? Hydrants are these vertical pipes which come out of the sidewalks generally, where you have pressurized water supply available from the, so this is basically provided, fire hydrants are generally provided in congested areas, congested public areas, where fire brigade or fire tender cannot easily come. So typically in hill stations and all, like for example, in hill stations you have a central market area, for instance. Say fire tender cannot access that particular road easily. In such cases, there will be a line separate, just like how we have water supply line. We'll have a separate firefighting line laid out with hydrants at equal intervals. Hydrants are these outputs, outlets from where water can be used during fire accidents. So for this given question, they're talking about an upright pipe with nozzles or spouts to draw water. Both will be the answer. Standpipe can be an answer. Hydrant can also be an answer, because this also is an upright pipe with openings provided for firefighting purposes. So both can be the answer for this 64th question. Next one, this question is based on structural systems. An arch shaped to develop only axial compression. An arch shaped to develop only axial compression under a given loading is dash. So they're talking about an arch which can develop only axial compression. So basically a structure which has pure axial what is axial compression? Along the axis of the arch. Let us say if this is an arch, the arch should be capable, they're talking about the shape of an arch or what type of an arch can develop only compression along the axis of it. That's called as axial compression without any bending. So there should be zero bending moment in it. They're talking about a arch with such a shape which has only axial compression, compressive forces along the axis. That's what they're talking about. So if you look into the given options, trefoil is basically an arch which has three foils. Just generally it is like this. This is called as a trefoil arch. So this does not have a geometry which allows it to create only perfect axial compression, so pure axial compression. So only axial compression can also be called as pure axial compression. Some structural element which develops a pure axial compression will have no bending moment in it. So they're talking about a shape which has no bending moment and which has only pure axial compression through its axis. So trefoil arch is not an answer because its shape doesn't suit to develop the axial compression. Funicular arch is one option. What is a rampart arch? So let me just draw the profiles and show you what the shape looks like. So rampart arch is basically where the levels of it, one end of it is lower, one end of it is higher. That's called as a rampart arch generally. Segmental arch is basically part of a segment of a circle, full circle. So these are the examples of the shapes. Funicular arch in this given options, that is a shape. So funicular polygon, in geometry there's a term called as funicular polygon. Funicular curves are those curves which are generated out of such funicular polygons, and funicular arch is something which has this ability to develop pure compression. If I give you examples, I see someone has a doubt yesterday, one question. The options was in such cases, marks will be given. Prajwal, so in case of incorrect questions, generally marks are awarded to everyone who has attempted, grace marks are awarded to everyone who has attempted the paper. That's the general practice. Now it can change based on the year-to-year approach or by the conducting authority, but generally, yeah, it is for everyone who has attempted the paper that they get the grace mark if there's an incorrect question. So coming back to this, I was talking about the funicular arch. So examples of funicular arch, one example I've included over here for you to understand what exactly funicular arch looks like. But before that, if I just name some funicular arches, catenary curve is one example. Catenary curve or a catenary arch is an example for funicular arch. You also have parabolic curve. Parabolic arch is an example for funicular arch. So these are examples for funicular arches. So parabolic arch, both are different. Parabolic arch, generally parabolic arch is used in the bridges, suspension bridges and all, to support at the bottom of the deck. You have the suspension parabolic arches. Catenary curve is generally used in large monumental freestanding arches. So let us try to understand what is a catenary curve. You can see in this picture. So a simple way to understand is, if you hold a chain, which has links, if you just hold it at 2 points, the profile which it makes, what you see over here, the profile it forms due to its self weight. So the chain will have some uniformly distributed load along its length, that it will have a uniform weight. Due to that uniform weight, the profile it makes, that's called as a catenary curve. If you just make a mirror image of it, you will get a catenary arch. So just like how catenary curve is pure tension, catenary curve is basically a profile made by a chain under its own weight, because it has if something has a uniform weight, it will form that catenary profile, catenary curve. So this will be under pure tension. If you just make a reflection of it, if you make a mirror image of it, you will get this catenary arch, which will be under pure compression, because now it is not working it's not lagging, it's not sagging under gravity, right? So it is something where you are supporting it on either hand. Now due to gravity, it will be under compression. So whenever curves or chains fall downward, form these profiles of curve, it will be under tension. The reflection of it, if you're making an arch with a similar profile, it will be under compression. Just like how a catenary curve chain will be under pure tension, this will be under pure compression. So catenary curve is a profile which is always under pure axial compression, just like parabolic curve too. So these are called as funicular arches. So B is the correct answer. In extension to this, you can remember some examples of famous catenary curve profile structures. One best example is the gateway arch, which is in United States. It was designed by architect Eero Saarinen. So this particular, so catenary curve profile was used in the design of Gateway Arch of United States. This was designed by architect Eero Saarinen, who designed this freestanding gate. You can just look into the pictures on the internet of this gateway arch. I have not included it over here, but the profile of that catenary of it is based on a catenary arch, which is designed to carry pure axial compressive forces only. So they do not have any bending moment, these shapes. So that's about the funicular arch profile. The answer for it is option B. Now you will need to obviously study further with respect to these structural systems. In this session, we are trying to look into the basics of the options, basics of the answers as comprehensively as possible, right? So let us move on to the next one, 66th question. If a person has been enjoying, now this is an interesting question, and you can just look into the, so that diagram is not part of a question, just the question and the options, right? So read the question. If a person has been enjoying light and air to his building from adjoining property or land uninterrupted continuously for 20 years, he gains the right to enjoy the same. So if a plot or a property, a person in a building, if someone is enjoying free access of light, sunlight, even the air, ventilation, if these sunlight and ventilation is being accessed on a property for a period of 20 years continuously, and after that if someone tries to come and construct a building and block it, that is not considered legal, because after 20 years the original owner who has been enjoying this light and air for 20 years, that person will have the right to enjoy the same. So no one can come and construct something and block it completely. So the owner of the adjoining property cannot construct anything that can obstruct the light or air. This easement right is called, so I was telling you about easement. What are easement rights? These are rights a person owns indirectly on someone else's land also. That's called as easement right. Examples for easement right include right of way, like I showed over here. This is a plot A, this is plot B. Plot A owner does not own the second plot, but he will still have the right of way through the property because he has been enjoying it for a certain period already. So that's called as easement right of way. Other examples for right of way include the easement lights. So this one, they're talking about light of air from the given options: easement lights, reverse projection, flying shore, ancient light. The answer is easement lights. Basically A is the answer. I will briefly talk about the incorrect options also, but if I just make a note of some examples of easement rights: easement right of way, that is ROW, easement right of way, which basically provides access through someone else's land to a given property. The other one is easement lights. Easement of light and air. Easement of support. For example, there is plot A and there is a building already existing over there for the past, say, 20 years. Someone starts to construct a multi-basement structure beside this. Someone wants to construct a shopping mall with 3 or 4 basements, and if they start digging the earth, now that can destabilize the layers of the earth, can have an impact on the foundation of the already existing surrounding building. So that is also not permissible. You cannot construct something on a new plot which will affect the stability of the surrounding plots. So that's called as easement of support, which mainly talks about the strength in the lateral strength in the earth, basically. So that's basically easement of support. So these are some examples of easement rights: easement of right of way, easement of support, easement of light and air. This is something which you can remember. So the answer here is easement lights, basically. That's about question number 66. Achha, I was telling you, I'll tell you about the wrong options as well. Let us look into the remaining ones. Reverse projection. Reverse projection is basically a projection out of the wall which generally overhangs on out of the building property line. So if you're having a building, generally a space which is projecting out of the building's external wall beyond the property line, that's generally referred to as reverse projection. There are guidelines in some development control regulations There are guidelines as to what type of reverse projections are permissible, which type are not permissible. There are guidelines for it. So that's about reverse projection. Flying shore is basically a type of shoring. If you know, shoring and underpinning are types of strengthening existing structures. Flying shore is generally used. It's a type of shoring. Now, what is shoring in construction? Shoring in construction is basically providing temporary support to strengthen already existing buildings. For example, I want to do some repair work in this particular space. I cannot, without thinking anything, I cannot just right away work on the say reconstruction of a part of a beam or reconstructing some part of a load bearing wall. I cannot do it without proper supports provided before doing the renovation. So the additional support you provide to existing structures, old structures, before renovation, before reconstruction, that's called as shoring. And flying shoring is one type of such shoring. There are different types of shoring, shoring, which one is flying shore. You also have dead shoring. So there are different types. Flying shoring is generally used for repair work between two parallel walls. It's given that name because the shoring equipment do not touch the ground. They are supported between two parallel walls generally. So that's called as flying shoring. You can read about different types of shoring, flying shoring and dead shoring. You can read about it. Ancient lights also is not a relevant term as far as this question is considered. So easement lights was the answer for it. Now moving further, question number 67. The term security deposit is used for the process of, this is one of the easiest questions. You all without any preparation also can answer this question very easily. What is security deposit? In which process is security deposit required or is used? Let's look into the options. Fixed deposit in banks. Obviously, no, fixed deposit or already a deposit way of putting in your money. You need not pay any security deposit in addition to it. When do you pay security deposit? Basically, when the other party wants assurance from you. For example, when you take admission into colleges, if you're going and staying in a college hostel, you'll need to pay some security deposit to the college people, to the hostel people, that you will stay sincerely, will not damage their property. That's basically what security deposit. If I go and rent out a property, if I want to rent a building, if I want to go and ask a landlord for renting out his space, his or her space, I'll need to pay some security deposit so that that person will be assured, okay, I'll not damage their property, right? So that's what security deposit is. So in which context is it used? Is it used in security systems? Obviously no. Just because it has the word security doesn't mean it is a term related to security systems. Safe deposit vault, that also is not correct. It is used in the process of tendering. So basically an owner who is accepting or who is looking for contractors to give out a work will collect some security deposit to ensure that the contractor would be sincerely performing his or her duties. That's what basically tender security deposit term relates to in contracts and in tender. So the appropriate answer would be tender documents or tender process. Basically, in the process of tender, you'll have, there are various types of deposits actually. In tendering process, you have earnest money deposit, EMD. Generally, security deposit comes after contracting. So the terms, so if I just give you a brief idea of what is earnest money deposit and security deposit, these two types of deposits. Earnest money deposit and the other one is security deposit. Earnest money deposit, EMD, is something which all the participating contractors will pay. For example, I'm inviting I have published notice inviting tender, and I'm seeking contractors for a construction project. Say 10 to say 15 different contractors are applying for the construction project with me. So these 15 contractors along with the tender documents will also submit some amount called as earnest money deposit. This is basically to ensure that no one is wasting my time by submitting incorrect bids, or so basically that some people can waste your time also without intention of participating in the actual process. To just ensure that everyone who is participating is a serious contender or a serious contractor, a fixed amount called as earnest money deposit is calculated from all the participating contractors in a tendering process. Now, earnest money deposit is just a deposit, it is returned away. So once a contractor is finalized, let us say there are 5 different contractors, A, B, C, D, E. everyone has submitted the tender documents along with earnest money deposit. Of these 5 people, if I'm finalizing contractor A to do my work, for the remaining B, C, D and E, for the remaining 4 contractors, the EMD amount will be returned back. The amount will be retained for the winning contractor, and that will be adjusted towards the security deposit, because whoever the winning contractor is, they will need to pay, in addition to the EMD, they'll need to pay security deposit also moving further. So that amount is adjusted against the security deposit amount generally. However, it's not a rule. So basically, security deposit comes after finalizing a contractor, whereas earnest money deposit is submitted by all the participating contractors in the process of tender. However, in this question, security deposit is a term associated with tender process. That's about question number 67. Next one, question number 68. Luminaire efficiency is dash. So let us try to understand what is luminaire efficiency. Now, to understand luminaire efficiency, this is a question related to lighting systems. Firstly, you need to know what is luminaire. Luminaire is basically an artificial lighting fixture composed of one or more than one light outputs or lighting units. So luminaire can be a composite lighting fixture which can have one or more light sources in it. Let us say this is set of 4. So you can have a lamp with four lights inside it, right? So a lighting fixture, artificial lighting fixture with various lamp sources in it, that's called as a luminaire. Now, what is luminaire efficiency? It basically talks about the total effective light output. Let us say the output of each of these, let us say there is a luminaire with 4 bulbs in it. Each bulb, say, has 100 lumen output. What is lumen? It is a measure of light output, or it is basically a measure of luminous flux emitted by a given light source. Say the one light source will ever emit 100 lumen light, this also 100 lumen. So each, so there are, let us say for example, I'm giving you this example, then we can look into the given options and finalize the correct one. Let us say the light output of each, or let us say a luminaire has 4 lamps in it of 100 lumen output each. Now ideally, if this, so what is this luminaire made up of? It is made out of 4 lamps, each is of 100 lumen. If 100 plus 100 plus 100 plus 100, if the luminaire output is also 400, if the luminaire is giving an output of 100 plus 100 plus 100 plus 100, that is 400 lumen. If it is giving 400 lumen, then you can say that it is 100% efficient, because it is giving 100% of the sum of the outputs. So basically, luminaire efficiency talks about how much percentage of the individual outputs is the actual luminaire giving. In practical terms, luminaire output is not 100% of the sum. It is something less than that generally, because of the shape, because of the other fixtures involved, because of other elements used in the lighting fixture. Let us say there are these 4 lamps, and above that I'm having some layer or coating based on the design. So there can be multiple n number of factors affecting it. So the actual output could be slightly less. So sum of individual outputs can be a higher value, whereas the luminaire output generally will be slightly lower. So that percentage which defines what percentage of the sum is the actual output, that's called as luminaire efficiency. It talks about the percentage of the sum, what percentage of the sum is the luminaire giving as an output. That's what luminaire efficiency is. In this example, I'm talking about 100% efficiency. In that case, it will be 400 lumen. If the output of the luminaire is 360 lumen, so then the output, if I say, is 360 lumen out of actual sum, which should be 400 lumen, into 100, that will give you the percentage of the luminaire efficiency, right? So if you cancel out the zeros, 90%, right? Then if the luminaire output is 360 lumen, you can say that it is 90% luminaire efficient. It has a 90% efficiency. So that's what luminaire efficiency is. Let me now write down the formula, and then we will look into the given options to understand which is correct. So luminaire output, the percentage of the sum, which is the actual luminaire output, that defines luminaire efficiency. So in terms of definition, luminaire efficiency is defined as the actual light output of the luminaire. You can write it this way: When I say light output, we are talking about the lumen value. Light output of the luminaire divided by sum of individual light outputs. This percentage, if you multiply it with 100, you will get a percentage. So the light output of the luminaire, in the example which I gave, light output of the luminaire I said is, for example, 360 lumen divided by sum of individual outputs, that is 100 plus 100 plus 100 plus 100. It is coming out to be 90%. That becomes the luminaire efficiency. So luminaire efficiency from the given options, let us look into the given options one by one. The first option is coefficient of the luminous flux leaving the source propagated in an element of solid angle containing the given direction. So nothing to do with solid angle in this particular definition at least. Next option, so that's not a correct option. Quotient of the luminous flux incident on an element of the surface. That also is not correct. They're not talking about two entities here. You should, so in the definition of luminaire efficiency, you should have two things: the luminaire and the sum of individual light output. Those should, the relation between that is defined by luminaire efficiency. Next one, third option, percentage of the lamp lumens produced, percentage of lamp lumens produced that actually exits the fixture. So how much percentage of the lamp lumens is actually exiting the fixture? So 90% is exiting the fixture, right? That is luminaire efficiency. So that's the correct option. What percentage of the light output is actually exiting the fixture compared to those individual outputs? So C would be the appropriate answer. Last option, they're talking about quotient of the luminous flux incident on the element of the luminaire. That also is not correct. Nothing is falling onto the luminaire. Lighting is coming out of the luminaire. In the last option, they're talking about flux falling onto the luminaire. That's nothing. That has nothing to do with the luminaire efficiency. So C will be the appropriate answer. And what is luminaire efficiency? It is basically what percentage of the lamp outputs is actually exiting the light fixture or the luminaire. So that's about question number 68. Next one, question number 69. In which interior design firm does the board of directors legally obligate business? So where do you have, which type of firm you have board of directors managing everything? That's the question. Limited partnership, sole proprietorship, corporation, general partnership. So basically board of directors is associated, is a term used in larger organizations. So if you have a large private limited company or a publicly listed company is basically a private limited company which has listed in the stock exchange or stock market of the country. That's called as publicly listed company. You have private limited companies too. So these companies generally have board of directors. Board of directors is a term associated with larger private limited companies or publicly listed companies or large corporations. Corporations are basically group of companies. So if there are 2 or 3 different companies merging and forming a corporation, that's called as corp. In such cases, you have board of directors. So limited partnership, sole proprietorship, these are smaller level of organizations in terms of business. General partnership also, it is a partnership between 2 or 3 people. But corporation is a public or a publicly listed or a private limited company which generally has board of directors. So C will be the appropriate answer for this question. So it has to do basically with the professional practice part, which talks about the business terminology. Moving on, a pure color is described by the term dash: chroma, tone, value, hue. So there are 3 terms in Munsell color system. You can see on the screen there are 3. So in Munsell color solid or Munsell color system, colors are arranged based on 3 parameters: hue, value, and chroma. So the options actually given over here relate to those Munsell color system terminology. Hue basically talks about the pure color. So what is hue basically in this picture? If you see the color wheel, you have different colors: green, red. So there is this ring. Along this circular ring, you have green, yellow, red, purple, blue. So there are five primary hues, and then there are 5 secondary hues. So that's basically pure color. So those pure colors are called as hues in a Munsell color system. Value basically is represented on the central vertical axis, ranging from black to white. So value basically has to do with the darkness or the lightness. Value basically represents darkness or lightness of a color, which ranges from 0 to 10, where 0 stands for black and 10 stands for white. So that's basically called as value. Then you have chroma. Chroma has to do mainly with saturation of the color. When you are editing using photo editing softwares and all like Photoshop and all, you have saturation which you can change. So if you increase the saturation, basically the color becomes brighter and brighter. You can see in this band, This is a band of purple blue with less saturation. As you move outwards, the saturation of it is increasing. Chroma value is increasing. So chroma is represented on the radial axis, value is represented on the central vertical axis, and the hue is represented on the circular axis, right? So hue is basically pure color. So the answer that a pure color is described by the term D. Hue will be the answer. Now what is tone? You can remember there are so there is tint, tone, and shade. If you can remember these terms also, it is good. So a pure color, if a pure color is mixed with white, it gives you tints of the color. So what is tint? Pure color mixed with white. If you're mixing pure color with gray, it is called as tone. Tones of, so if I ask you create tones of blue, you'll take blue and add gray at different levels, you will get tones of gray, tones of that color. If you take a pure color and mix black into it, you will get shades of a color. So what are tints of a color? Pure color plus white is called as tint, pure color plus gray is called as tone, pure color plus black is called as shade. So tone basically is mixture of a pure color with gray. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about pure color here. Pure color is called as hue. A pure color is described by the term hue. That's a question based on color theory from architectural graphics. That's question number 70. Moving on to the next 71st question. Which among the following floor is eco-friendly, available in rolls of various colors and designs, and is laid on already existing floors to improve the floor's durability and appearance? Carpet flooring, linoleum flooring, glass flooring. Glass flooring for sure will not be an answer, because you cannot roll out glass flooring. Is not something which is available in vibrant colors, is eco-friendly, can be made into rolls. They are talking about that. So glass flooring is absolutely not an option. Carpet flooring can be an appropriate answer here, because carpet flooring suits all the given explanations. Carpet flooring, it is generally eco-friendly, it is available in rolls of various colors and designs, it is laid onto already existing flooring to improve the durability and appearance of it. So carpet flooring is the appropriate answer over here. So A is the answer. Linoleum flooring also, it is a type of roll based, so this also meets most of the parameters. Linoleum basically, it is a type of flooring which was invented in early England in the 19th century. It was based out of solidifying linseed oil. So the base of linoleum flooring was linseed oil, which was solidified with a canvas backing or a cloth backing to it, cotton cloth backing. So it was basically a sheet with solidified linseed oil applied onto it. This was also available in different colors. It was also eco-friendly, but in present days it also is durable and gives good appearance. But linoleum flooring is not used in today's time as such, for because of its cost of production and also the durability part of it. So from the given options, carpet flooring would be the most appropriate answer. However, if there would be an option like 1 and 2, 2 also can for sure fit into this given explanation. But 1 is more appropriate. So whenever you have such, so 1 and 2 also can be the answer. But from the given options, you need to select the most appropriate one. If you have to choose between anything like between 1 and 2, it should be 1. 1 is more appropriate. 2 also is slightly appropriate. So if option 1 and 2 exists, you can select 1 and 2. But here they are talking 1 and 3. 1 and 3 cannot be an answer. 1 only will be the answer. So A is the correct answer for this question. So that's about the carpet flooring, which is an eco-friendly, durable, roll-based flooring material which can be laid onto surfaces. Next question. This also is based on color theory. The poorest color combination with regard to visibility for any graphics is. So green and red overlaying one onto the other is not considered to be good from reading point of view, legibility point of view, you can say. Red on white is very clearly visible. In fact, from a lot of time I was using red to write on this board, right? Red on white is very clear. So it is basically a general knowledge based question. You can use elimination approach actually, which is poor combination. Red on white is not pure. It is very, you can see how that red rectangle is shining out of the white background. White on green. So if you have a green background and you generally see those green boards. On green boards, teacher generally writes with a white colored chalk piece. You can clearly see that. Why? Because white on green is a good combination. It is not poor. So this also is not an answer. Black on yellow, so if you have a yellow background and you're writing with black on it, black will be very clearly visible because yellow is a very you can say light shade, right? So a lighter color which is not that dark and bright and heavy. It's a lightweight color, so black can work on it. That's also not an option. Green on red doesn't work. Green on red is not generally clear. So because green and red both have similar, you can say, in terms of importance, both have equal weight. So when in order to get clarity, there should not be equal weight, equal visual weight. There should be some difference in the visual weight. Then you can view at it clearly. Because green and red are said to have same visual weight, they are not good one over the other. So D will be the appropriate answer for this particular question. Next one, 73rd question. The main materials in the construction of Crystal Palace, Hydro Park, London in 1851 was dash. What were the construction material in they're talking about what are the construction materials used in Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace is said to be the early modernist building. It was basically constructed in 1851 to house the world exposition, or basically a world exhibition was held over here, over there in London. This was designed by architect Joseph Paxton. This is said to be one of the oldest modernist building. What is modernism? What is modernist building? So this basically housed the world exposition, and it was constructed to show off the technological advancements. So the main motive of this particular exhibition was to show the industrial revolutions contributions to architecture and construction in particular, and also throughout the world in general. So to show that, Joseph Paxton has designed this particular modernist structure using cast iron and glass, cast iron framework. So it was a prefab structure. It was prefabricated and brought and assembled on site. It was a prefabricated structure of cast iron and plate glass. These were the construction materials used in this particular structure, and it is a prefabricated construction technique which was used. So it was basically a statement which was being made out in this world exposition in 1851 in England, in London, that see what are the contributions of industrial revolution, see where we have reached. It is famously said that people, when they entered into Crystal Palace, they were astonished to know how so much natural light would enter into a space without using artificial lights, because before that, castles and all, they were generally they generally had dark interiors, right? So such huge amount of natural light, well lit spaces without any internal lighting, people were shocked to see that for the first time in Crystal Palace, with use of lot of glass and cast iron. So the answer is option B, cast iron and glass, designed by Joseph Paxton. This also is an important building, important architect. Questions have been asked in multiple exams based on who is the architect of this particular building. Such questions can also be asked in the examination. So B, remember the name of this particular Crystal Palace and the architect associated with it. Next one, 74. The factors that contribute to the design of artificial illumination are, so utilization factor of the fitting and sky component, maintenance factor and externally reflected component, sky component and external reflected component, utilization factor of the fitting and maintenance factor. So basically the sky component, externally reflected component and internally reflected component, these are the three components: sky component, internally reflected component, externally reflected component. If you add these three, you will get daylight factor. So these are basically components of daylight factor. These are components of daylight factor. They are not basically related to artificial illumination. In this question, so this is related to daylight. What is daylighting? Natural lighting. So these are the components of natural lighting, not artificial lighting. In artificial lighting calculation, we use utilization factor and maintenance factor. So if you know this formula, how do we calculate number of lamps required in a room? For example, this is a room and I want to calculate how many lamps I need to fix in it. The formula for it will be the number of lamps required in a space is given by the required illumination multiplied by area of the room divided by flux output of each lamp into utilization factor multiplied by maintenance factor. So we use these two factors. I'm not going into the details of it, but you should be aware of this concept because it's something which is a basic one in lighting and illumination. So you probably know that number of lamps are calculated in this approach. So we use these factors, utilization factor and maintenance factor. utilization factor, maintenance factor. These are used in the artificial lighting fixture or illumination calculation. Option D will be the appropriate answer. The remaining options talk about the components of daylighting which are not necessarily related with artificial lighting fixtures. So that's about this question number 74. Moving on to the next one, question number 75. The design of this is a very simple question now. Design of outdoor public areas, landmarks and structures to achieve environmental and social approbation. Approbation is basically appreciation, you can say. Someone saying that okay, this is good from environmental social point of view is called dash. So they're talking about outdoor public spaces, structures and landmarks to achieve environmental and social balance. So that's basically landscape architecture's definition. Landscape architecture has to deal is a branch of architecture which deals with designing outdoor spaces, gardens and other public spaces with importance being given to social and environmental concerns of the surrounding affected people. So that's the correct answer for 75. Next one, question number 76, again a simple one. Balance, symmetry and harmony along with water flow manipulated variously were the highlights of dash. Zen garden, English garden, Mughal garden, Spanish garden. So balance, symmetry and harmony with flowing water. You know the famous Charbagh concept. What is Charbagh concept? Where you have flowing water channels intersecting at right angles, which represents the 4 flowing channels of water or rivers of water as described in the holy books of Islam, right? So these are Islamic gardens which particularly were made finer in Mughal gardens. So if you look into the Mughal gardens across the Indian subcontinent, including the Shalimar Bagh in Kashmir, you'll have various ways of flowing water. Generally in Shalimar Bagh at Kashmir, you have this terraced garden. Generally in Mughal gardens, you have various levels of gardens with water flowing across those terraces. With because of gravity, you also have these water fountains. Water fountains were facilitated because there was no electricity and pumps and those days of time, right? So the fountains were facilitated under gravity mainly. So these flowing water, manipulation of it, symmetry and balance and harmony, these were the features of Mughal garden. That would be the appropriate answer for this question. Next, question number 77. Use of wind towers to control the temperature within a building is called. Again, a very simple question. Wind catchers or wind towers in architecture are passive design elements. They are used for passive cooling. So passive cooling. What is passive cooling? Controlling the temperature or cooling the space, cooling a space without using any artificial source of energy, without using coal, without using electricity. So using those passive cooling elements to cool a space is called as passive cooling. Examples for passive cooling technique, you have this wind towers or wind catchers. Wind towers are also called as wind catchers. Traditionally, wind catchers were referred to as malkafs in Egypt. You have malkafs of Egypt. You also have badgirs. Badgir is a term for wind catcher used in Iran. So traditionally in Iran, Egypt, in the northern part of Africa and in the Middle Eastern region, in the West Asiatic region, you had these wind catchers or wind towers to cool a space. It was a passive cooling element. So passive cooling would be the answer for wind towers. Next one. Consider the following types of waves: P waves, S waves and rail-like waves. Which of the above are propagated as seismic waves? So actually all the 3 are types of seismic waves. There are various types of seismic waves. If I just give you a brief idea, now it's not possible to go into the 100% detail of it and explain you, but if I give you a brief idea of the seismic waves are mainly categorized into 2 types. You have body waves and surface waves. Body waves are those seismic waves which transmit in the earth, inside the earth's body. So if there is an earthquake happening for fissure, the waves which propagate through the earth's surface, body of the earth, those are called as body waves. The other is surface waves. Surface waves are basically those seismic waves which propagate on the surface of the earth. After an earthquake's occurrence, when there are waves propagating on the surface, that's called as surface waves. Body waves are those waves which propagate inside the earth. Now if you ask me which are more harmful, obviously surface waves are more harmful, because surface waves will increase the damage and increase the casualties in an earthquake disaster. Body waves on the other hand are important to detect the earthquakes. Body waves are of 2 main types. You have P waves and S waves. Body waves are of 2 main types, P waves and S waves. Those are represented in the pictures over here. What is the difference? P stands for primary, S stands for secondary. So primary waves, they are called as primary waves, P waves, because these are the first waves to be detected in case of an earthquake. So P waves are basically longitudinal waves. They just like sound. Sound travels in compressions and rarefactions, right? Similarly, P waves also transmit similarly in the form of compressions and rarefactions. So that's a primary wave. Whereas secondary wave, S wave, it is a transverse wave. So those are the two types. P wave and S wave are two types of body waves. As in surface waves, you have Rayleigh waves and love waves. These basically are a combination. So if you look into the surface wave over here, this is a combination of both transverse wave and also longitudinal wave. It is a combination of it, and it propagates on the surface. So in this question, however, all the three are the types of seismic waves. So 1, 2 and 3 would be the appropriate answer. 1 and 2 are body waves. This is a surface wave. So that's a brief idea on the earthquake waves or seismic waves in earthquake study. Next question again has to do with earthquake resistant design. Which of the following is or are the most adoptable options for earthquake resistant structures? Which is very easy to adopt for earthquake resistant structure? Let's look into the options one by one. Flexible joints. Flexible joints are never recommended in earthquake resistant structures. Now imagine there is a column and beam with a flexible joint between them. In case of earthquake is a lateral loading. In case of earthquake, when a lateral seismic load is applied onto the building, that joint, because it is weak, the vibration or the lateral because the joint is not rigid, it will not move together. The displacement will not be uniform, because of which the failure of the structure will be inevitable. So flexible joints are not permitted in structures. The joints should be rigid enough to make the building work as a single unit. It should not be in pieces, and so because in pieces it is possible that it will break and fall down easily. So flexible joints are not recommended. Base isolation is an important technique in earthquake resistant design. You can see in this picture, base isolation is where a base isolator is used before the foundation. Base isolator can use spring mechanism, ball bearing mechanism, rubber based materials are used sometimes. This basically is used to make the overall building flexible compared to the foundation. So when there is horizontal loading, the overall building itself will not fail because it is not rigidly fixed to the foundation. So base isolation is an important aspect. Deconstructivism has nothing to do with earthquake resistant design. Deconstructivism has to do with the style of architecture in postmodernism. So 2 only would be the answer. B will be the appropriate answer for this question number 79. Moving on. What is the file extension for AutoCAD template files? So AutoCAD template files are basically those AutoCAD files which you will be so if you are having some preset parameters which you want to replicate in many drawings, you can create a template file of it. And AutoCAD template files are of extension DWT. DWT is an extension for template file, just like how DWG is a drawing file. So you have these various extensions listed on the board. I have included the list of extensions used in AutoCAD files. DST is drawing set file, DWF is a web file, DWFX also is a web file, DWG is a block file or a drawing file, DWS is a standards file, DWT is a template file. That's what this question is asking about. So you also have the other extensions listed. You can have it for your reference. Have a look at it for your reference. That's about the template file option. They're talking about the extension in that question. Next, question number 81. The National Building Code of India has divided seismic zones of India into, as per the NBC, as per the IS codes, as per the Bureau of Indian Standards map published from seismic activity in India, there are 4 zones in India. So people might get confused. You might have heard about zone 5, the most severe earthquake zone, which is in the Himalayan region in Himachal and all. You have zone 5 earthquake zone, right? So just by looking into zone 5, you cannot think that there are 5 zones. Actually, there is nothing called as zone 1. So the zones of earthquake, seismic zones in India as per the IS codes are zone 5, which is the most severe one, zone 4, slightly moderately severe, zone 3, which is even more less severe than that, zone 2, which is relatively safer, right? So these are the 4 seismic zones in India: zone 2, 3, 4 and 5. So there are total of 4 zones, not 5. D will be the answer. There's nothing called as zone 1. So that's about the NBC classification of seismic zones of India. Next one, transit oriented development implies pedestrian friendly street design in residential neighborhood. So the first, you need to read the options very carefully. What is transit oriented development, TOD? It is a mixed use development, compact high density mixed use development along the transit lines like metro line or other transport or public transit structures, right? So that's what TOD is. So let's look into the options. Pedestrian friendly design, that's till here it is accurate, but in residential neighborhood that will not be the correct option, because mixed so in transit oriented development, mixed neighborhoods are propagated or promoted, so one is not the correct one. Second one, high density development around important transport nodes, that is a correct option. That's a correct explanation for transit oriented development. According priority to public transport in a city, that also is correct. Pedestrian friendly is also an aspect of TOD, but in TOD you have high density mixed units, mixed land use structures, right? So 2 and 3 will be the appropriate answer over here. C will be the correct answer for this question. Moving on to the next one, 83. Concentric spread is type of. Concentric spread is a type of disease, growth of town, hazardous fire, flood. The answer is growth of town. You also, so what is concentric growth of town? Basically, you already know concentric zone model. That is one. Even if you are not looking into those traditional planning theories, even in present days time, concentric growth of a town is generally governed by the ring road. So if you have a settlement, you'll have a ring road and the town spreads till there, then you have an outer ring road again. So that basically defines the concentric growth of a city. So concentric spread is generally a term associated with growth of a city, which is defined along those ring roads in modern days time. So growth of a town would be the appropriate answer for the question. Question number 84. The time duration by which the completion time of an activity can be delayed without affecting the start of any succeeding activities is called. Now that is a clear, direct definition of what free float is. The answer will be option C. There are 4 types of float in project management. Total float, which is the total extra time you have on an activity without affecting the project completion time. But here they're talking about extra time you have in an activity without affecting the start of succeeding activities. So if you don't want to affect the start of succeeding activity, how much extra time you have without affecting the start of succeeding activity, that's called as free float in project management. So the extra time you have in an activity without affecting the start of the next activity and the finish time of the predecessor also, if it is written that way, start of succeeding activity and the finish time of the preceding activities, if that would have been written, then the answer would be independent float. Interfering float on the other hand is nothing but the difference between total float and free float. Total float minus free float is called as interfering float. So however, for this given statement, the answer will be free float. That's the direct definition of what free float is. So you'll need to have a good understanding on the 4 types of float and the calculation part of it as well. That's question number 84. Next one, question number 85. Which of the following represents an event? So in project management, there are 2 things. Activity. Activity is a piece of work which consumes resources. The milestone which you reach after completing an activity is called as an event. What is an event? It is basically a milestone. Event is a milestone in a project. What is activity on the other hand? Activity is a piece of work. It is a task which consumes resources. Activity on the other hand, it is task, or in brackets you can write piece of work which consumes resources. When I say resources, it includes labor, material, time, money, investment, all these, right? So these are 2 things, activity and event. So which of the following are events? Concrete cured, that looks like an event. It's a milestone. Once you are done with the curing of concrete, you will reach a milestone which is cured concrete. So concrete cured is a milestone, that will be an event. Selecting sites is a process, it is an activity. Plastering the walls, plastering also is an activity. It will consume time and it will consume labor, material. Fixing doors, that also is an activity. Generally in project management, whenever you come across ing form, generally, not a standard rule, but when you're talking about a present going on thing, like if you're using the word ing, that talks about activities generally. So concrete cured is a milestone. Curing concrete is an activity. Once you're done with the curing activity, you will reach a milestone. That's called as cured concrete. So that is an event. A will be the answer for this question number 85. Next, question number 86. Power stations are generally treated as power stations, or basically the uh, power plants. Power plants are where electricity production is done. So it is not only an electrical construction. Electrical construction has to do only with electricity, but when you're talking about power stations or power plants, you have thermal power plants and hydropower plants. Will have large turbines. You will have the transport lines to carry in the coal if it is a thermal power plant. So all those are basically industrial units. So it is generally classified as an industrial construction. Option B will be the correct answer. Even if you look into the National Building Codes building classification in the fire safety part, there are total of 9 types of building construction, or 9 types of buildings, building categories, of which under industrial category you also have power stations. So power stations, power plants, all these come under industrial construction. B will be the appropriate answer. So even without NBC, you can think about it this way: power plants have not have are not completely dependent or related to electricity. They also have a lot of turbines, or they also have these industrial setups like roads and other infrastructure associated with manufacturing units and all, like, so it is an industrial construction. 87. Horizontal intermediate member separating door and a window is called. So if you are having a unit with a door and a window, with door at the bottom and window at the top, this horizontal element they're talking about. So if you're having a vertical element, vertical elements are generally called as mullions. The horizontal ones are generally called as transom. So if this is a window and a door at the bottom, the horizontal line or horizontal member which defines that boundary is called as a transom. So C is the correct answer. So rail, on the other hand, are the horizontal members within the door panel. Within the door, you have, if you're having subdivisions, those are called as rails. Stiles are the vertical subdivisions within the door panel. So within the door panel, these are called as rails and stiles. Mullion and transom are generally terms used in windows and doors to define the vertical and the horizontal elements. Transom is the division between door and window. That's something which you can remember under 87. Next is term 88. A screen constructed to regulate sun rays entering a building is called. So screens basically can include louvers, can also include pergolas, any of these structures which are used to shade a space, to protect a space from sun rays. That's called as brise soleil in architecture. Brise soleil is a French term which was popularized by French architect Le Corbusier. So brise soleil stands for sunbreaker actually. If you translate it, brise soleil, it is a French term for sunbreaker. So brise soleil is an architectural element which is used to deflect the solar radiation. It is a screen to protect a window from solar radiation. So brise soleil would be the correct answer. Even jali is an example for brise soleil. What are examples for brise soleil? Jali, shading devices, louvers, pergolas, all these can be called as brise soleil. Brise soleil is any architectural element which deflects the solar radiation. So A will be the appropriate answer. Next, question number 89. The software package considered usable for development of networks. Networks is basically project management. They are talking about the project management based software. Primavera project planning software, absolutely yes, that is used for project network creation. StatPro is a software used for structural analysis. That's not an answer. Harvard Total Project Manager, that's also a software tool used in project management. So 1 and 3 are the correct answers. What are the other project management software? MSP also is widely used. Microsoft Project also is a project management based software used to develop networks. Other than these two, HTPM and Primavera, these are also used for project management and network creation analysis. 1 and 3 are the answers. B is the correct answer. Last question for today, question number 90. After project scope, layout and design have been finalized, after project scope, layout and design are finalized, the areas in which further cost control can be achieved is, what are the things after the designing, after the layout creation, after the project scope defining, in the subsequent steps, where can you save your money, where can you control the cost? So labor, absolutely yes, you can do that. An effective labor planning. So basically in labor planning and project management, generally it depends on the project, but there's a general approach of hire and fire. So basically you don't so if you're having a project going on for 30 days, you cannot employ 100 labor on the first day, 10 labor on the second day, again 90 labor on the third day, again 15 labor. That irregular hiring process is not followed in project management. A hire and fire based approach, so you gradually increase the number of labor, gradually decrease. Such techniques are generally used. So this is said to be effective in cost control of labor management. So labor, in the area of labor, you can save cost. That's one. Plant and equipment, absolutely yes. Even in that, so whatever, if you want a tower crane or a turbine, so, or say those tunnel boring machine, whichever type of equipment you're talking about, those have to be employed at a particular number and at a particular time. It should be optimal to save the cost as well, right? So materials also you can save cost, because all these come after the designing part. uh, how much material should you bring? So for example, if there's a flooring, estimating the quantity correctly and bringing everything at a single time, not bringing it multiple. So transport cost should be optimized. So you can optimize the cost in these areas, on all the three areas. So 1, 2 and 3 will be the answer. After the layout, design and project scope, you can still save cost on all the three fronts of labor, plant and equipment, and materials as well. So that was all for today's session. We will meet in the last one. There's one more last session for 2016 question paper of CPWD, in which we will solve the last 30 questions from question number 91 to 120. That session also you will get a notification on the same YouTube channel. So stay connected with us, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and stay connected so that you get an update whenever there is a next session where we will be solving the remaining 30 questions. Also, if you have not yet enrolled into our classes, you can consider enrolling into the classes preparation by KP Gate classes, where we train students for the CPWD examination particular. Thank you everyone for participating in this session, and we'll meet you soon in the next last session, part 4. Bye everyone.